All right, everyone, welcome back to Talk Tickers. Today, we're bisecting NIO's Q3 2024 earnings call.
Oh, yeah.
We've got the transcript, the stock performance charts, and some insightful news articles.
Sounds good.
Let's break down what's really happening with this ambitious EV maker.
All right.
Okay, let's start with the big news. NIO just posted a record 61,855 deliveries in Q3.
Wow.
Absolutely dominating the premium EV market in China.
Yeah.
But then you dig a little deeper
Uh-huh.
and see their overall revenue actually dropped year over year.
Interesting.
How do we reconcile those two facts?
Well, that revenue dipped despite the record deliveries
Yeah.
points to a deliberate shift in their strategy.
Yeah?
NIO is pushing their more affordable ONVO brand
Right.
aimed at the mainstream family market,
Uh-huh.
and those vehicles come with a lower price tag.
Makes sense.
So even with higher sales volume,
Yeah.
the lower average selling price is impacting the overall revenue figures.
So it's not about squeezing every last dollar out of each sale right now.
Right.
It's about grabbing market share and building a base for future growth.
Exactly.
Right.
They're sacrificing some short-term revenue to gain market share and brand loyalty.
Yeah.
It's a classic play, especially in a fast-growing market like EVs.
Makes sense. Now let's talk about this ONVO brand.
Okay.
Their first model, the L60, is generating a lot of buzz.
Yeah.
What's so special about it?
It's packed with cutting-edge technology,
Right.
like a 900-volt architecture for incredibly fast charging
Brown.
and an advanced e-architecture operating system. They've also incorporated a suite of family-friendly features. It seems like NIO took everything that made their premium brand successful and adapted it to appeal to a wider audience.
But it's not all smooth sailing for the L60, is it? I'm seeing reports of production hiccups
Oh.
and slower than expected ramp up.
Uh-oh.
What's the bottleneck there?
It seems those impressive specs are also causing some headaches on the production side.
Right.
Integrating that 900-volt architecture and the advanced e-architecture is a complex process.
Yeah.
Plus, it appears they underestimated the initial demand and didn't have enough launch stock to keep up.
So growing pains,
Yeah.
but likely surmountable for a company with NIO's engineering capabilities, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. But NIO has a strong track record of innovation and problem solving. I wouldn't bet against them figuring this out.
Okay, good to hear. Now let's switch gears and talk about profitability.
All right.
NIO's vehicle margin hit a respectable 13.1% in Q3,
Not bad.
and they're projecting 15% in Q4.
Yeah.
What are they doing right to boost those margins?
A few things are contributing to their improved profitability.
Okay.
First, material costs have decreased,
Right.
which helps their bottom line.
Yeah.
Second, they're strategically focusing on higher margin vehicles, particularly those under their NIO brand. And finally, they've implemented a company-wide cost mining project.
Cost mining.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that. What exactly does it entail?
It's about digging deep into their processes.
Okay.
Identifying inefficiencies and waste, and streamlining operations. It suggests they're committed to fiscal discipline, which is encouraging for investors looking for long-term sustainability.
And speaking of big plans, NIO is dropping a third brand next month, codename Firefly.
Wow.
We're all buzzing about this one here at Talk Tickers.
Really?
What do we know so far?
Details are scarce, but it's expected to target the compact car market,
Okay.
potentially competing with entry-level EVs. We'll get the full picture at NIO Day in December. It's a bold move launching 3 distinct brands in such a short span of time.
3 brands targeting different segments across multiple continents. It's a lot to juggle.
It is.
What's the thinking behind this multi-brand strategy?
It's ambitious, no doubt, but also strategically brilliant.
Okay.
By establishing the ONVO brand and its charging infrastructure in global markets first,
All right.
they're laying the groundwork for the Firefly launch. Think of it as building the ecosystem before bringing in the new model.
So ONVO is the foundation.
Right.
And then Firefly swoops in with a ready-made charging network.
Yep.
That's pretty savvy. But let's talk about their international expansion.
Okay.
The first NIO house in the Middle East is opening soon. But I'm hearing Europe is proving to be a tougher market.
Europe is definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
Tariffs are impacting their margins, and sales haven't quite met their initial expectations. However, NIO seems to be playing the long game in Europe.
Okay.
Focusing on building brand recognition
Right.
and providing top-notch service instead of chasing immediate sales volume.
So it's about establishing a foothold and gaining consumer trust,
Yeah,
even if it takes longer.
precisely. They're laying the groundwork for long-term success.
Okay.
And remember, Norway, a key EV market in Europe,
Yeah.
is not affected by the tariffs.
Oh, right.
And NIO is performing well there.
Interesting. So they're being patient and strategic in their approach to Europe.
Yep.
Okay, let's shift back to the company's overall goals.
All right.
NIO CEO William Lai is aiming for company-wide profitability by 2026.
Ambitious.
That's a bold target.
It is.
But do you think they can actually pull it off?
It's ambitious, but not impossible. Their rapidly growing sales volume, combined with their focus on cost optimization and higher margin vehicles, definitely gives them a fighting chance. They're not just chasing growth for the sake of it. They have a clear path to profitability.
That's reassuring to hear, especially for investors who might be wondering if NIO is all hype and no substance. It sounds like they're building a sustainable business for the long haul.
Absolutely. NIO is proving that they're not just another EV startup. They're in it for the long game. Speaking of the long game.
Yes. It's time for our This Is Not Financial Advice segment.
Oh, here we go.
Where we throw out a purely hypothetical, potentially outrageous trade idea.
I'm ready.
Are you ready to speculate wildly?
Always up for a little speculative fun.
All right.
Hit me with your wildest idea.
Okay, here's the scenario. We know NIO is entering the mainstream market with ONVO and the L60, right?
Right.
They're aiming for families, everyday drivers, folks who might be buying an EV for the first time. So what if, alongside a long-term bet on NIO, you took a short-term position on a competitor who's heavily reliant on that same mainstream market,
Right.
but whose tech and pricing might not stack up against the L60?
Now that's an interesting angle. You're essentially betting on NIO's long-term success,
Right.
fueled in part by ONVO's market share gains,
Yeah.
while simultaneously capitalizing on a competitor's potential short-term vulnerability as they grapple with the L60's entry. It's a high-risk, high-reward play for sure.
Exactly. And to be crystal clear, folks, this is purely hypothetical.
Of course.
Don't run out and make any trades based on our wild speculation. This is for entertainment purposes only.
Absolutely. Not financial advice, just some food for thought.
Right.
But it does highlight the intense competition brewing in the EV space.
Yeah, for sure.
NIO is not just joining the game, they're changing the rules, forcing established players to adapt or risk being left behind.
They're playing 3D chess while some of their competitors are still trying to figure out checkers.
That's a great way to put it. NIO is making these bold strategic moves that are sending ripples throughout the entire industry.
Yeah.
They're not content with just being another car company. They want to redefine what's possible in the EV world.
And it seems like they're backing up those ambitions with concrete actions.
I think so.
They're not just talking about innovation, they're delivering it,
Right.
both in terms of their vehicles and their overall approach to the market.
Exactly. And what's particularly interesting to me is how they're cultivating a sense of community around their brand.
Yeah.
It's not just about selling cars, it's about creating an experience in the lifestyle.
That's something we haven't really touched on yet, but it's definitely a key part of NIO's strategy.
It is.
Tell us more about this community aspect.
Sure.
How are they building it?
They're incredibly active in engaging with their customers.
Okay.
They host events,
Uh-huh.
create online forums, and even have their own dedicated app where owners can connect, share experiences, and even trade battery swap credit. They're building a tribe of NIO enthusiasts, and that kind of brand loyalty is invaluable.
It's like they've tapped into that human need for connection and belonging, but in the context of a car brand.
Yeah,
It's smart because it creates a deeper relationship than just a transactional one.
exactly. It's about fostering a sense of shared values and passion for innovation and sustainability.
Yeah.
It's something you don't see with traditional car companies.
So let's bring it back to our listener.
Oh.
You're someone who's interested in the EV space.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard the buzz about NIO,
Uh-huh.
and you're trying to make sense of it all. What's the key takeaway from this deep dive?
I think the biggest takeaway is that NIO is playing a different game than most other car companies. They're not just focused on building cars, they're building an ecosystem.
Right.
From their battery swapping technology and charging infrastructure to these innovative sales models and their focus on community building, they're creating a holistic EV experience.
It's like they're taking the best aspects of the tech world,
Yeah.
the focus on user experience, the community building,
Yeah.
the ecosystem approach,
Yeah.
and applying it to the automotive industry.
Exactly. And it's not just about appealing to early adopters.
Right.
With the ONVO brand, they're clearly targeting a much broader market. People who might be buying an EV for the first time.
Uh-huh.
That's where the real growth potential lies.
It's a bold strategy, but if anyone can pull it off, it might be NIO. They've certainly demonstrated a knack for innovation and a willingness to challenge the status quo.
Absolutely. They're not afraid to be different, to take risks, and to chart their own course. That's what makes them such a fascinating company to watch.
Well said. NIO's story is one of ambition, innovation, and a deep understanding of what consumers want, both in terms of products and the experiences.
For sure.
They're definitely a company to keep on your radar.
Couldn't agree more. Their journey is far from over, and I, for one, am incredibly excited to see where they go from here.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked record deliveries, new brand launches, global expansion, ambitious profitability targets, and even a little bit of speculative trading. But before we wrap up this deep dive into NIO's Q3 2024 earnings call, is there anything else you want to highlight for our listeners? Any final thoughts?
I think, just to reiterate, NIO is playing a different game.
Yeah.
They're thinking long-term, building that ecosystem.
Yeah. You know what's interesting?
What's that?
They're not just appealing to those early adopters anymore.
Right.
You know, the tech enthusiasts. They're going after the mainstream now.
Yeah, with that ONVO brand.
NVO?
They're really targeting people who might be buying an EV for the very first time.
First-time EV buyer.
Yeah, that's a huge market.
That's where the growth is.
Absolutely.
It's a bold strategy.
It is.
If anyone can pull it off, it just might be NIO.
I think so, too.
They've shown they can innovate.
Yeah.
And they're not afraid to shake things up.
Yeah, they're not afraid to be different. Take risks. Really forge their own path.
That's what makes them so interesting to follow.
Yeah, it's a fascinating company to watch.
NIO's story. It's a story of ambition, innovation, and they really seem to get what consumers want.
They do.
Both in terms of the products themselves and the whole experience.
Absolutely.
They're definitely a company to keep an eye on.
Couldn't agree more.
So much is still unfolding.
It is.
I'm excited to see what they do next.
Me too.
All right, everyone, that's our deep dive into NIO's Q3 2024 earnings call. We covered a lot today.
We did.
Record deliveries, new brands, global expansion, and even a little speculative trading.
Don't forget that.
As always,
remember, this is not financial advice.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning. And we'll see you on our next deep dive here on Talk Tickers.